log into Cisco.
Oh, so
I can get into Cisco. All right, first thing. Let's go through several things on Packet Tracer. For items for you to be aware of in there. This is version 6. You've got probably on your machines at home, you should have version 7, so it changed it slightly on how it looks, but it's basically the same thing. Okay? And that pop opening screen has drastically changed. But once you're in here, this whole white area is what they call the desktop. Okay? Once I go into whichever lab I go into today, in chapter 2 they've done a lot of blocking on them, so some of the things I want to show you real quick right here you can't do in the first ones, but you'll be able to do in later ones that they've given you limited abilities. On here, when you do the other labs and when we go to open the other one, you're going to see they already normally have the equipment there for you. Now when you get into advanced courses, there are some labs you have to put the equipment out there for yourself also. You will have to cable the equipment in later labs, although the first couple of them you don't have to cable, but you do have to put a rollover cable on them. So if you got to put equipment in, you're going to come down here and choose the type of equipment. And then it has all your options off to the side. So right now it's chosen on routers. So I could choose to put a router up there to work with. And I just click one and drag it and it's up there. I could also put a PC up there. So I'll go into the PC options, and there's a number of different types of PCs, servers, TVs, etc. that are in this option here for you. So I could drag a PC up there. I guess really I'd do a switch instead. But router or switch, y'all are going to be working with switches more of in this course, and then you'll get to the routers in the next course. But stuff's going to work basically the same on the router or the switch. There are some commands that work on one or the other because of the difference in what they do, and some commands that work a little bit differently, but they're essentially the same. So if I've got those two there, this lightning bolt one is where you can choose cabling from. And I say on one of them you got to do some cabling. I know you got to put a console cable in. The cables you're really going to be basically worried about in this class right now is the second, third, and fourth one. The second one's a console cable or a rollover cable. That's only used to plug from a PC into the console port on the Cisco routers and switches, and to go in from the PC to configure them. Okay? The second one is a straight through cable. That's your most common patch cable you got out there. Okay? That's what, when you go and buy some piece of equipment and they have a cable in the box with it, that's the cable they normally have in there for you, because that's going to allow you to hook different types of equipment together. Okay? Y'all follow on that? The third one is a crossover cable, which lets you hook similar types of equipment together. So if you need to hook two routers together, that you would use the crossover. Actually, if we were going to hook the PC to the router, we could use a crossover too. Because when we get to levels in the next chapter, we'll see they are not on adjoining levels, but different levels. But in this case, we could hook it together, but it's just not going to work with the straight through. Well, it might on there. Nowadays, most of the switches and routers out there have intelligent ports on them that we'll talk about later in the book, and that you can actually use either a straight through or a crossover cable to plug into them. And when the router or switch comes on, it listens on that port, because the crossover cable, what it does is it reverses the receive and the send ports, okay? Because both devices are using exactly the same pins on that plug to send on. So you got to get it switched going across so that what you send out here goes in receive on the other end and vice versa. Does that make sense? If they're different types of equipment, they've actually, one of them's got its receive and send on a pair, and the other one's got its receive and send on a different pair, okay? And so then you can just plug in a cable that goes straight across because it's going from the receive to the send, or send to receive, whatever. To do your configurations in the devices, which is what you're learning in Packet Tracer to do, you're going to use the console cable to do that. Now, in this first chapter, it does have you use the console cable. On the real equipment, you have to use the console cable to get from the PC into the router or switch to be able to do all the stuff in there. Does that make sense to y'all? You could also come across the network and stuff if it's been allowed on that, and we'll see some commands that relate to that in just a few minutes. On Packet Tracer, it will actually let you go directly into the router or switch without having to go through the PC to get there. Does that make sense to y'all? So it's not making you have to go through a PC to do it most of the time. Although one of y'all's assignments, at least one of them there in chapter 2, requires you to put a console cable on there to do it, okay? To do that, you're going to choose the console cable down here, which is the light blue one. It should be the first one. Didn't look very light blue down there to me. And then you can go to either of the devices to plug it in. Now, if you just hover over it, it tells you about the ports that are on it and if anything's occurring on there and what addresses are there. That's what's happening right there. If I click on it, I click and let go, it then shows me all of the ports where stuff can be plugged into on that device. Now, that doesn't mean that that cable can be plugged into all of those ports. Does everybody follow on me? But that's all the ports that are sitting there on that device. So we're on the PC here, so it says it's got an RS-232, which is a serial port, which is what PCs have had always along the way, although your newest PCs a lot of times don't have a serial port on them anymore. It's got 2 USB ports. That's normal on your PCs, that you got 2 or 4 or 6 or something USB ports on the thing, right? Really only 2 normally is what's on the machine, but it's got extra ports that plug back to the same actual port on the motherboard. And then it's got an Ethernet port, okay? Which is your network connection. So in this case, the console cable actually plugs into the serial port, okay? Don't know if I've got one in here or not. Don't think I've brought any over here. But they are light blue cables, and what you're going to make later in the class, you're going to make a rollover, but to use it, you'd have to have an adapter to plug into the serial port. So now I will choose the serial port. Well, if I try to plug it into the USB, okay? Notice what happens. It says you can't do that because it won't physically fit in there, okay? So it won't let you plug into ports that are not the right size, but they might not be the right port if there's multiple ports. Do y'all follow on that? So now I'll come back to it again, click on it, and I'll choose RS-232. Somehow, I didn't choose the right wire. All right. So I'm going to come down and choose the correct wire. Well, actually, before I do that, since I got a wire there plugged in and I've got drawn out there, to get rid of it, I come over here to the red X, choose it, and I'd actually come and get on it, but since it was already chosen sitting there, that hadn't gone to anything, it deleted it. Normally, you got to come over and get on whatever it is and delete it. Now, once you do that, get yourself back off that red X, because anything you click out here, it'll delete on you while you're still choosing the red X. So go back up to the select tool, get yourself back to that so you're not deleting things by accident. Come back down here and I'll choose the correct cable, which is the light blue one. Come back up here to the PC, choose RS-232. I have no idea in the world why that black cable actually plugged into the RS-232 a moment ago. It shouldn't have. Now come over to the router, click on it, and notice it's got a console port on it. And it's got 2 Ethernet ports and auxiliary. So I'll put the console, and now I've got a connection across there. Does everybody follow on how to do that? That you're going to choose it, and then you're going to go to one end, plug it in, and go to the other end and plug in the other end in. Okay? Now, next item. There is a logical view and a physical view. On the version of Packet Tracer you're using, it's going to have logical and physical words written up here. On this one, it's got a little drop-down tab representing, and it'll put the word up when we choose the other. So that gray part behind there is the physical view instead of the logical view. You're going to normally work in logical view in this class, but you can go to physical view, and that's where you can see how do you have this equipment actually situated in rooms, etc., in a city or from city to city. Because you notice there that it says it's in a home city, there's a highway running, and you can narrow it on down to the building and right on down to the room and see that it's that the device, that the PC hasn't been put in a room on here, but that router is sitting in their working closet, okay? But I can go back to the logical view, and I say on yours, you're just going to click the word logical or word physical, but normally stay in logical view, but just so you know what that's there. Now, I've told you about the X over here, so if anything gets on there you didn't want on there, you'll use the X. Does everybody follow on that? And you'll just go and click and delete it. So if that was the wrong wire we've got on there that's now plugged in, I can come over to the red X, choose it, come over, and I can click on that wire, and it will take it away. Does everybody see that? Now, as far as I remember, I don't think there's an undo on here, but let's see. Yeah, there is an undo. So you can undo also. I'm not sure how much memory it's got on undo, so I don't know how many you can go backwards on undo. You may only be able to do undo one time, as opposed to when you're in office or whatever, y'all can undo 20 or 30 times backwards. Second one is, so be well aware you want it normally be in select tool up here. Now the other one is on your assignments in here. In my directions, I tell you, you have to put your name on the desktop. If you don't put your name on the desktop, it's going to cost you 30 points. Has everybody got that? First assignment, I'll probably let people buy on it, returning it to them and tell them you got to fix this, and then I'll grade it. Okay? After that, you're just going to lose straight 30 points off on it, and it's not something you can fix. Okay? So make sure your name is on the desktop. To do that, you're going to click on this piece of paper here that says it's to place a note. And these may be slightly changed on it, and they're somewhere over in that area on version 7, okay? I haven't told them to upgrade these all in to the new version. You're going to come somewhere out on the desktop, and it doesn't make any difference where you do it. And you're just going to click, and it's going to give you a text box. And so you can type in your name wherever that is. Okay? So everybody follow?
So we can't put our name on the document itself when we turn it
Wait a minute.
in? You can't put your name on the document itself, like before you upload it?
No, I don't want it, I'm not looking for it on the name of the document. I'm looking for it to be specifically on this desktop. Okay? So it's got to be on the desktop for me. If it's not on the desktop, you're going to lose those points. Second thing is, this desktop is a whole lot bigger than just what you're looking at right now. Because we can go way down, because there's a scroll bar over here, so you can go way down, or you can go way over to the right. Does everybody see that? But most of the stuff is normally up here in the upper left corner. Preferably put your name up here in the corner with the equipment. Don't make me have to go looking for it on there, although I will go look if I don't see it, okay? But that's more stuff for me to have to look around trying to find it on there. And I will normally go look around on the whole thing, okay? So that's what you've got to do on here. Now, the other part is, it's got a save routine just like you're used to up under the file drop-down menu, just like you're used to in your other programs. There's a save as, and a save as PKZ. Don't use the save as PKZ. That's a zipped packet tracer file, okay? That gets more complicated to open. Just the regular PKA file that you're going to have, that they're going to supply you with, or if you go further in here, that into further courses, that where you have to design the program yourself, you'll have a PKT file. So if I save this right now, it's not designed as an activity, it would save as a PKT. But PKT, PKA, either one's fine. You're going to be saving as PKA because they give you an activity file, which we'll look at in just a second. So you can do save, and it'll just save it to wherever it was, or you can do save as and save it to another spot. Okay? Any questions on that? Now, they're small files, so if you have a problem in it, you can email it to me. That if you email and ask me a question that you're having a problem trying to do the packet tracer, and you tell me what the problem is. If I'm not real sure what it is you've encountered, I may well write you back and tell you, email me the actual PKA file. It's a small file and you can attach it to your email and it'll go right on through. It's not a big file. Does everybody follow on that? Even with a large amount of equipment added in there, and I have built one when I took my CCNP first course. We had a packet tracer file up here that probably had 35 pieces of equipment all in it, okay? It was still a small file. You're going to also, when you turn in your assignment, you're going to turn in that packet tracer file. You're going to attach it in Blackboard. If there are questions to answer, you're going to put those answers in a Word document, okay? Label them and attach that also. You can attach more than one thing on a submittal in Blackboard in the Dropbox. You can attach one and then you can tell it to attach another thing, and it'll let you attach multiple things before you hit submit. If you attach one thing and hit submit and we'll go, whoa, I meant to attach two things, no problem, just do another submittal and it will let you do multiple submits. And just make a comment on that one, here's the rest of my work or something like that, okay? I forgot to attach this file. And then when I grade it, actually what's going to happen is I'm going to grade one of them and I'm going to tell you that you're missing whatever. And you're going to say a low number on that one. And then when I grade the other one, I'll realize you already did it on the other one, and you'll get the full grade on the second one. And it's the highest grades what goes in the grade book. Okay? So you would just do your save or save as here. And when you download it, if you downloaded it through Chrome and most of the browsers, it's going to download it into the download directory or folder. You can put it somewhere else. You can put it on your thumb drive or whatever. If it's on small thumb drives actually and stuff, because it's not a big file. And where you can then work from place to place, or you can just have it at some spot on your machine. Okay? So, and then that's what you're going to open up on it. Now, and that you can come in, start Packet Tracer, and do file open to go get the file, or since you've installed the program, that it's going to have the default of the PKT and PKA. It's going to be the file association with it, and if you just double click that file, it'll open it up. So now I'm going to close this. Thought I was going to close it. And I don't want to save that, so I'm going to say no. Now I'm back. I chose the wrong course right there. I'm going to go back in Netacad, and we're going to get a file here. And I'm going to show you some stuff from working from within it about the commands and how you put your commands in from working in the actual file. Now, to find your files in here, so we're in Packet Tracer just like your normal. You can go through modules and hunt through, looking through the curriculum to find it. Or the easier way to me to find them, because I'm giving you the whole 4-digit number of which Packet Tracer assignment it is, that I gave you those numbers in Blackboard, is that you go to launch course, and then if you come down here to the bottom, there's a course index right here. You could click on chapter 1 and then choose whatever the second number is, and then choose the third number, and so on to get to it. Or, to me, this is easier. Go to course index, and notice here it's got a Packet Tracer index. Click on it. Actually, I got to click course. Yeah. And then it shows you all of the Packet Tracers that are in this course. Okay? So then you can just look down the list, find which one it is, and click on it. Now, which one was it you were having the problem on?
Actually, I looked at it and I figured out what I was doing wrong.
Okay.
The enable, whenever you do, because it was asking for the secret password or whatever, and I realized that if you do enable and then enable secret, it like the secret one was what they didn't say enable secret password, so I kind of got confused. But then I realized that, well, I was looking at it just now, that it's because you're supposed to do the one, and then you're supposed to do the second one. It counts as the first one.
Because they want it. I think they had you do both ways on it.
Yeah, the first time, and it's kind of threw me off.
That they had you do it
step.
where it's exposed and then unexposed, which I'm going to try to show y'all in a minute. Okay.
Unencrypted.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I can come down here and choose on this of which one I want to do. And that in chapter 2, there's the command structure, etc. I think. So I'm going to go into the command structure one. So if I click that one, it then takes me to the page in the curriculum where they were. You've got two choices here. You're going to use the second choice. Okay? The first one always is just the instructions, and it's a PDF file of just the instructions. You don't need it. It's built into the second one. That's why it's a PKA file, not a PKT. A PKT only has what we were just looking at in Packet Tracer. PKA has both a Packet Tracer, desktop, and all of that stuff there, plus it has instructions associated with it that are interlinked that I'll show you. So I'm going to choose the second one. And it downloaded it, and since I'm in Chrome, it put it down there at the bottom. Depending on which browser you're in, depends on how it tells you about that it did the download. So everybody follow on that? So if you're in Edge or Firefox or something else, it may give you a pop-up or something else about it, whatever, but it's going to get it to your downloads for you. So I can just come down here since it's there, and I can just click on it, or I could go look in the downloads directory folder, find it, click it, and open it, and it opens Packet Tracer for me. It opened two different things right here for me. It's got the desktop that we're used to before, and it's got the directions. So now I'm going to enlarge the desktop, and since that's two different windows there, the other one's going to just, except it doesn't put this one on the top, and I keep forgetting to add it in here. It got this profile window that pops up that you're not going to use, okay? But it doesn't pop top, it just pops in there, and it's one of those hidden pop-ups on it. And y'all have seen that happen in other programs probably also, where you're frozen and can't do anything until you deal with this pop-up that you don't even know is sitting there because it put it behind things. Why they do that, I don't know. They coded it wrong. All you need to do on this is just hit cancel. It's supposed to work when I touch it, but it obviously didn't. Either hit cancel or just close the box. At that point then, you can actually do something with the box. Okay? So now I can come back down to the bottom, and I can get my directions, open them, and when I go to do something on here, so you may want to put them open right both beside each other, or if you've got a dual monitor, put one on one monitor, one on the other monitor. In any event, it's there. As you read down through here, it's going to give you the directions of what you're to do. Everybody follow on that? Now, it does not tell you to put your name on the desktop because that's in my directions in Blackboard, okay? But you got to do that. So they're going to lead you through showing you how to do the different things. Now, on this assignment, you are going to have to put the console cable in there, which I didn't show you. I should. Well, this one. Does it let me go into the command line? Okay, so this one's got the command line interface locked, which when you go on further on them, it's not going to be. So this one's saying you've got to do it just like it was physical devices. Does that make sense to y'all? Because on the real one, you can't just go straight into a router or switch. You've got to go through some device to get into it. But on here, you actually can. So I'm going to put a console cable back in here again, like we just saw on the other one. So, which port am I going to plug it into on the PC?
The first one.
The RS-232 or serial? Which one am I going to plug it into on the switch? So I've got 27 ports to choose from. Which one?
Console.
Console. Okay? Because it's a switch and it's got all those ports on it, just like it just showed you there. Okay? And so now I'm there. Okay? In the future, you'll be able to just double click on the device and go to CLI tab, and you'll be where you can type everything in. At this point though, you'll have to go to the PC, and on here you're going to choose desktop, which is giving you a desktop like in Windows, but it doesn't look like modern Windows. It actually looks like original GUIs that came out back in the 80s. But notice it does have a bunch of icons on here, okay? Where you can go in and control all different things, look at some different things, etc. The one you're concerned about on here, later on you're going to be concerned about the IP configuration for that PC, so that you will use on PCs in some future assignments. But at this point, we're wanting terminal because we want to use a terminal session to get into that switch. Does everybody follow on that? If we connected up a switch from back there to your PC in here, you do the same thing. You'd use PuTTY here at school is the terminal emulator package we've got installed here at school for you to use to get into the devices. There are other terminal emulator ones also. Windows used to include one, but they dropped it a couple of versions ago. I guess XP, I think, was the last one that had it on it. So I will click terminal. This would be the same thing would pop up on your PC if you were going through PuTTytail. and going into it, it would stop and ask you about how is that port configured. You do the same thing there or it's here. Just click OK and go with the default settings. And then you get this screen here. This is the same thing that would pop up on the real equipment for you when you go into it. Tells you about the copyrights and all of the version, etc. on it. Does everybody follow on that? And I'll try to remember next week to bring a console cable here over here with me. And
what happened to the command display where you have to type in like a question mark to see how everything's running?
try again.
Said what happened to the display that when I was doing it was like command prompt in a way where you type in the commands to get something.
When you type in the commands in here,
Yeah.
we're coming to that. That's going to be there in just a minute. Okay, this is your pop-up of where you started it. And then down at the bottom, and it tells you versions and all of that's what it's telling you. Down at the bottom it says press return to get started. And that's what you got to do every time, whether you're doing it. Even if you went directly into the device, when y'all can do that later on future ones, either way you're going to get the same screen. I'm going to hit the enter key and it gives me a prompt. Okay? Which is where you were wanting to be at, I think. Right?
Yes.
So it says S1 and a greater than sign. Everybody got that? The S1 tells us what device are we on. By default, Cisco has named their switches S and a number. Okay? And then if it thinks it's got more than one that it recognizes on the network as they get set up, sometimes they'll get additional numbers on them or they'll all end up as S1. The routers will say router. Okay? That's the default names on them. We're going to change those names in just a minute. See how to change it to have it a different name. The greater than sign tells us that we're in exec mode. We're in the bottom level mode that you can go into to configure these devices. In exec mode, all you can do is just look at stuff. And you can't even look at everything. You've got basically just got viewing privilege. Okay? Now, once we set up a password onto this thing in just a little bit, that you can have it stop and that you'll have it stop and ask people for a password before they can even get in. You'll also see how to put a message down here at the bottom that you can leave them a message telling them they're not allowed in here unless they're authorized, which is what we're going to use the message of the day to do. So now from here, if we want to make changes in here, you've got to be in privileged mode. To be in privileged mode, you have to type enable, because you're going to enable the privileged mode. Now, back to what he was commenting a little bit ago, you're going to learn how to put a password for that also. Because when you're out working, you want some people to be able to look at stuff, and some people to be able to go and change stuff and actually get onto CCNP courses. You'll learn where you can actually put different user accounts in here on it, okay? But at this point through this sequence of courses, you're just going to learn how you can set a basic password to the two different levels, okay? You're going to use the enable command, which you don't have to spell out most commands all the way. Most of the time you can abbreviate them about 3 letters long, and it will know which command you're talking about. So for enable, all I do is put ENA, and most people out there, that's what they do. Some people actually do spell everything out. You're going to discover some things are rather long and that you can shorten it up to real short. And so people are going to do that. And a lot of people are just going to know them purely by the short name and not even know what it stands for. Okay? So if I do ENA, what just happened up there? I think I can. me see if I can expand the screen for you. So that we get it bigger. There. Change the display settings. Change up to 150. I guess I don't have to save that it's happy with it. Used to be you had to do some saving, so I didn't. Okay. Now then, it didn't phase that part. Go figure. They changed the menu buttons, but it didn't change our text in here. I thought I could enlarge that. In any event, notice down here it now says S1 number sign instead of saying S1 greater than sign. The number sign tells us we're in privileged mode. Greater than sign says we're in exec mode. Y'all follow the difference? So your prompt is giving you information. The first part of it right here tells us the device, and it's also going to tell us what level we're in within exec mode. So right now it just tells us the device. Okay? Now then, to actually do your configuration changes, you got to go into configure mode within exec mode. To do that, you can either do configure terminal, that's a lot of typing, or you can do config T, which is a whole lot shorter, right? And you're going to find most people out there just do config T, and if you ask a lot of people out there that do this stuff, they may not even be able to tell you what config T stands for. They just know it's config T. Does it make sense? At one time, they probably did know, but they may not know anymore. Notice my prompt changes again. So I'm going to shrink this back down slightly, where I can get it up higher for y'all. And notice it now says we're in config mode at this point with a number sign still. Okay? Now we can actually type in commands. To change the name of the device, because you may well want to name your devices by where they're at, because you're not going to always be going into them, plugging in, going into manage them, or that when you have a problem occurring on one, you want it to be able to recognize in the log of where problems are occurring, that it tells you which device it is, so you'll know which router has gone bad on you. Okay? So you want to give them different names. Some places will come up with all odd names for them and remember what they've got them named. Some will name them in some type of convention that tells you, when you look at the name of it, tells you where it's located at. Okay? So they may have the floor number and the room number it's sitting in or whatever. Or I have seen places that named them for flavors of ice cream and kept a master list that told them vanilla was at some place, chocolate was at some other place, strawberry was somewhere other place. I would suggest doing the first way, not the second way, so that somebody else that comes in there can quickly know how to figure out when there's an error pops up, that it pops up and says that stuff's not happening right on strawberry. You got to go look up the list and figure out where strawberry is, okay, or where cherry vanilla is, or whatever. If it told you that it is in building 3, floor 2, room 13, you'd be able to go right to it and see what's going on, okay? To do that, we're going to do host name, which we can abbreviate host instead of spelling out host name, and then the name that we're going to name the device. So let's name this one CIST 2451 or something like that. And you're just going to type in the name you want to give it, hit enter, and it changed it. Y'all see on that? I'm trying to what the other beginning ones. Oh, the other part is This is Unix base, so you can use special characters like you may have used in Linux Unix. Or if you want to go back to previous commands, the up arrow will work for you to bring back commands. So if you typed in something wrong on that one, you can come back to it. The other one is, and I don't remember if I mentioned it to you in this chapter or not, if you put a command in wrong that you need to remove from your configuration, it's real simple to do that. You just put no in front of the command. Okay? So if we really didn't mean to name it that, we could do no. We could pull the command back up, type no in front, and that's going to kill that command. It's going to remove it from the configuration. And notice it now changed to switch because that's really what the default is, that they actually had pre-named it to S1 for us, okay? And so it goes back to the default at that point. So now it says switch. Or we can switch back to the name we meant to do that we actually had there, go back, do the same command again, and it's back there again for you. So no in front of the command removes it. Most of the commands, just typing in the command again with whatever you meant for it to be, will replace the other one. But some commands, that puts another thing in there, and so you got to use the no for sure on those to get rid of the previous one. In this case, on host name, it only keeps one host name out there, so when you put another host name in, it replaces the host name that was there. And you really didn't have to do the no, but the no did work for us there. Questions on all of that? Passwords, they tell you some on how to do that here. They talk about that you've got a couple of line ports on here. You've got a console line, and that's what it calls it as. So when you want to go in and set a password for somebody, you can put a password on the console port. So somebody that comes in through the console port, it makes them enter a password. You'll do line console 0 to get into that mode where you can do things to the console port. There could be more than one console port, so that's why the 0 there after it. Ports are numbered from 0 within the iOS, which is the operating system we're using here. It's Internet Operating System, okay? It's what Cisco uses. It's a variation of Unix, okay? So there is some similarity, but not a lot of similarity. You can find not a lot of similarity really to Unix on it, because a lot of this stuff isn't used on regular PCs. But you will find some things are. So we want to go to the first console port, it's the only console port, so it will be 0 because they number from 0 on things. And then from here, how do we put the password in? For the console port.
Password.
Since you've already done it. We're going to do password, and then whatever we want the password to be. This one's going to be a fully exposed password that when we look at the configuration, and if you print a copy of it, which you really ought to in a production place, and have it on file somewhere, somebody else can see what the password is right off the bat if they get hold of that paper. Okay? So we're going to put a password of password, because we want to be like most people. 70% of the passwords out there in the world are password. And it now has a password. However, now you got to do one more thing when you're setting up devices on here. By default, they allow you to log into the device, but when you set a password on it, at that point, login is disabled. And you got to enable login again so that they'll be able to log in from there. Okay, so you got to put in login. And then at that point, somebody can log in through the console port. Does that make sense to you? So if I do, to get out of this, you can do end or Control Z. Control Z will take you back to the bottom layer. Okay, it'll take you out of config. End will just take us down a level, if I'm remembering correctly. Nope, in took us all the way back
Exit,
out of config.
Exit takes you down.
Exit. Exit will take you down a level. Okay? And so I'd have to type config T to get back into configuration. However, I'm going to jump a spot here so I can show. Well, let's go ahead and do one more. I don't have any clocks on the wall, so I can't tell time. So I'll go back into configuration. If I want to put an enable password on here, what am I going to do?
Type in
Enable password.
Enable password will let me put a password in that's fully exposed. That will print out on the sheet of paper for me. Okay? Does that make sense to y'all? Because let me come out of config T again. So I'm back down at exec mode. Now, notice also that sometimes it gives you a message back when you go do things. You're really, even though you're sitting right here, you're really still sitting right by the number sign. So you can start typing here and it knows to ignore what it put up there. Or you can hit enter and it'll give you another prompt line. Does that make sense to everybody? A lot of times I go ahead and hit enter just to keep it cleaner looking to myself, but you don't have to, okay? If I want to see what my configuration looks like at this point, I really didn't. I really wanted to do, I want to go ahead and put in the password just without
So to go into
encrypting it.
executive mode, you have to type in enable and then configure.
What?
To go into executive mode, you have to type in enable and then configure.
You're going to do enable to go in executive mode. To go into configuration mode, you got to do config T. Now, if you forget to put the T on there, notice what it did to me. I did config and forgot to put the T, and so then it asked, do you want to configure from terminal, memory, or network? And it says default is terminal, so it assumes I really probably meant terminal. If I hit enter at this point, it goes ahead and uses terminal. Does everybody follow on that? So then it'll go ahead and it assumed I meant then config T on it. So sometimes it will give you defaults, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it will give you an error about similar type stuff. Now if I do enable, password, and then the password I want for the enable password. And we'll do this cheap one again. Password. Because you got to remember these, okay? Or else you're going to completely lose all of it and you got to wipe out and start all over again. There's not a password breaker. So now I have set a password on enable. So, but I have not saved anything. I haven't shown you how to do that. So we're not going to go all the way out. But I do want to come back out where I can look at what's in the configuration. If I do, to see my configuration at any time, I got to be back at the exec prompt or the privilege prompt, and that I can do a show run. Show is going to be when you want to see things at any time, okay? There's lots of show different options. Show run will give us our running configuration. There's two configurations sitting on our machine at this point. It's just like when you're working in Word. When you're working in a document in Word, you've actually got two copies of that document at that point. The one that's stored on your disk and the one that you're currently working on. Does that make sense to y'all? Here we've got a running configuration, the one that's actually we're running stuff off of right now, that's in memory. And there's actually a startup config, which is the one that's sitting back in the flash memory on the device. Because on our routers and switches, we actually have flash storage on there. Is what it uses. On the newer ones, it's actually a removable card on there. The older ones, it was built into the board in the router or switch. So I'm going to do show run because I want to know what's in the running one. Okay? If I did show startup, it's not going to have any commands that I've entered in it because we haven't saved it. Does that make sense to everybody? But it'll have the default things they had in the first place. So I'll do show run, and then it gives it to me. So it said, typed in show run, it told me it built the configuration, and then it gives me the information. Most of this, it has already in there. But then it has the commands we put in there. This is what it uses when it starts the device. It goes through this to set up the device for us. Sort of like the registry in Windows. Okay? Or the other part on where you go to which programs start up at the startup time and such. It's that part too. Does that make sense to y'all? So you're really into the registry for the router or switch is the best way probably to think about it. There's here, host name, CIST 2451. That's what we put in there, right? Except it's got the full spelled out command for it. Enable password. So if you pick up this printout, if we printed this, if you picked up the printout, you'd know exactly what the password is into it, correct? Does everybody follow on that? Then it's got down here, we're on a switch, so it's got lots of interfaces on it, because remember we had 26 ports sitting down there, 24 fast Ethernet, and then 2 gigabit ports on it. So if I hit enter, it's going to give me one line at a time on the show run. If you hit space bar, it will give you a screen at a time. Those are backwards from the way I think they really ought to be, but that's the way they did them. So there's nothing we have done on setting up those interfaces. The interfaces are just there, but there's been no rules set on them. So there's nothing there for each one of them, but they're all there. And then it tells us about our console port, line con 0, and notice it actually uses the abbreviation for I spelled it out. And it told us what the password is and the login. So it gives us the same commands. So what you're putting in goes literally into that configuration file. Y'all follow on that? And then comes on down and it's got our virtual ones also. We've got 16 virtual ports. 16 different people could come in from the network into this device. Does that make sense to you?
Can't you set the time on that? Can't you set the time on that? Because when I was doing 2.146, it asked for you to configure the time.
Time?
Yeah. It said like
Yeah.
set time to something or something.
Yeah, but you can set that too. It's a computer sitting there. You're setting the configuration on. So here's that. Here, that virtual, the VLAN that it's got on here, it's actually got an address assigned to it by default. Subnet masks are spelled out completely on these switches and device routers instead of being able to use the shortcut where you just tell it how many bits across. We'll get into that more later on, but so now that's set there. So I'll come on out, so I'll finish displaying. It ends and goes back to the prompt. If I want to save this, the command to save is you're going to use copy run start. You can actually save it to other spots also, but what that stands for is that you're saying the running config and the startup config. So if I do copy run start, I'm saying copy the one that's in the run, that's the running one, the one that's in memory, back to our storage area on the flash memory. Okay? Because you don't have a hard disk in these devices. So you're using the flash memory to store to. When you do, even though you told it what file to save it as, it proceeds to ask what file do you want to save it as. I'm not sure why it throws that prompt, but it always has. So it says, what's your destination file name? The default is, based on what you said, startup-config versus the running-config is where you're copying from, but it doesn't ask you again on that part. So that's the one we do want to save it as, is startup-config. So we'll just hit enter, and it real quickly saves it. It says it built that configuration file and saved it out there. And so it's saved now. Does everybody follow on that? So now if I shut down this device and came back in, or let's just come out of enable mode. So I'll do out of privileged mode. I'll do disable. And I think I just have to do DISA. I have to go beyond DIS because DIS doesn't get the specific command. There's several commands start with DIS. And it takes me back down there to exec mode. Does everybody see that? Now, if I go back to go into enable mode again, notice what it did. It stopped me. It asked for the password. Okay? Now, as a warning to you, when you type in passwords on the routers and switches, nothing happens. Okay? So when I start typing the password, it's completely hidden. Nothing happens there on the screen. I have typed in the password. Okay? I just typed PASSWORD. I hit enter, and obviously I mistyped it. I typed it correctly that time. But notice it didn't put anything up here. Where in Windows you're used to is putting asterisks or something across the screen for each of your characters. That drives some students crazy to start with, because the first time they're trying to do it and they're going, it won't let me type in the password. Well, they're typing it in, but they don't realize it. Okay? So that's why I'm giving you the warning on that one. So let's go back to config T, because we've decided we really want to make that enable password not visible to everybody. We want to make it secret from people, which is the key word. Okay? So what you will do, since we want to change the enable password, is we'll type enable, just like we did before. But instead of typing password, we'll type secret, because we want to do a secret password. And it's going to store it, it's going to encrypt it using MD5, which you'll see pop up in just a minute. So now, y'all want to do it still as password, but we'll just stay with password as our password, but it'll be a secret password. And I'll hit enter. And I need to disable the other password, don't I?
It says that you can re-enter the...
Huh?
Is it a... well... I don't know.
Because it's told me not to use the same one. I'm thinking I have to... I think the other one still actually sits there, but I'm not sure. Alright, so we're going to go with a different password.
I think if you type it in again, it might work. 'Cause it's
So I'm going to type Watt as a password. Can y'all remember that?
Yeah.
Okay? Because we're going to need it in just a minute. Because when we come out of this, for me to show you what it did, we're going to have to get back in and we'll have to remember that on it. Alright, so now I'm going to exit back out so I can get back down to where I can do the show run again. So now I'm back down here. I'll do show run again. And we'll see what the enable password looks like this time in the document. Did I just skip over the first screen? I did. I hit the key twice without meaning to. Notice now, and so the other password is still there, so we got to disable it to get rid of it. It said, which is the reason it recommends not using the same one if you're going to do a secret one on it. Notice what the secret says, enable secret, but we just put enable secret password. The 5 here tells us it's using MD5 encryption type, okay? That's what the 5 is there for. That is password encrypted. It is breakable, okay? Because you can take it to an MD5 converter and it will break it for you with enough tries. It'll take you a little bit, okay? So it's not total, it's not a high secure, but it's fairly secure, okay? But encrypted for you. If you did just password, it puts it out there in plain text. Everybody follow on that? Now, if we want to get rid of that other one, so it should go with the secret one when. So let's come on out of here. So I'm just going to Control Z. No, I'm not. I'm going to exit, I think. I did exit out, that was for sure. So now, this sitting here, this is just the basic password to get back in that we had set on the console port, remember? We're back to that point. In the labs, they're generally going to have you using 3 different passwords. Use the one they tell you to use, because that's how I can then get into your stuff. But the other part is the 3 passwords they're going to normally have y'all using, although once in a while they have you use something different. But use the one they tell you to do, because the other part is it's going to grade you on that. Is they're going to use either class or Cisco, which is the 2 they used to use on all of their labs. Now they also use CCNA 6 on some of the stuff. Okay? Because remember, you're in version 6 of the book. So I'll type password here because we know this one was password still for the console port. Whoops, I wasn't at the password. And if you wait long enough, it times itself out. So I'm back into the device because I did the password now. Now to do enable, and then ask for a password, and so we'll put password. I'm going to put password, but it shouldn't work. It should make me do Watt. It did, because it should be using that secret one. And that Watt worked, okay? Because it used the secret one. The other one's still sitting there, but it's not using it. So we could just leave that one sitting there anyway. Does that make sense to y'all? You could get rid of it by going back into config and doing no enable password, and it would get rid of that unencrypted password. But you put no in front of the full command. But secret didn't just replace the other one, it just put a secret one out there, but it has secret is what it goes by as it looks for first. And it doesn't use the second one if there is a secret. Alright. Now, what have I not told y'all in this first part that I need to tell you? Copy run start, talk about. Alright. Message of the day. You can put a message on there. It says message of the day, MOTD. You use that abbreviation, but MOTD stands for message of the day. That is literally from Unix. Back in the 70s and 80s, that you really did use it as a message of the day, that when people were connecting to your server or whichever device, and the router and the switch is being treated sort of like a server, that you would have as terminals, you could have it pop up with a message to the people when they logged on. Really not used for that anymore. That you're coming through the PC and you got all kinds of other stuff on it, and you really don't want pop-ups anymore, but that was there. You could also, and still can, although most places it's blocked, and actually you could originally send to anybody on the internet, that you could send out a message that went to everybody. And those pop-ups drive crazy. You now got those blocked everywhere. And they're plain text little boxes, and people actually will use them for ads still, occasionally. But they don't go very far. But if we go back into config T, I can set up that message of the day, and it is still used, but it's not used for a message for that day. Because back when I ran a Unix system in the 80s and early 90s, I would use the message of the day to tell people that were logging onto the system something that was coming up. At Christmas time, I'd put a Merry Christmas there. If I was going to take the system down during the day at 1 o'clock this afternoon because I had to do some maintenance on it, I would put it on there as the message of the day. The system will be going down at 1 o'clock to give them a warning on it. Or just before I went to take it down, I would put it on there and send it out. I would actually send it out as a message to all of them and say, we're going down in 5 minutes, log off. And so you could do things with message of the day. You do banner, MOTD, and then you're going to put the message. What it's used for today is people will put legal disclaimers out there, putting a legal warning out there on people, telling them not to get on the device unless they're authorized. And as long as they got it out there on that, if somebody gets into your system then, into there and does stuff, you can actually prosecute them off of that. It's sort of like putting up a no trespassing sign. Does that make sense to y'all? If you're going to do it that way, the suggestion is you may want to talk to a lawyer to get the wording correct on it. So if you're in a large company that has their own legal staff, go ask the legal staff, how should we word this to tell people they're not allowed in here? And that if they go any further, they're going to be prosecuted. But even if you're a small company, you may want to just word it yourself, and you can go out and find different people's wordings on it and just put a wording there that this is private territory. Unless you're authorized to come on to go into this router, you're not allowed to go any further. And if they go further, then you can actually, you've got them on, they've broken into your equipment from a remote site. Okay, they don't have to be there, and that you can catch them on that. So then you're going to put a delimiter to market the beginning and end of it. That delimiter can be anything, but it has to be a unique character in that's not in that message that you're putting there. Most of the time you will see people use number signs as a delimiter, but they could use anything else. Whatever you start typing is a delimiter. And until it sees that character again, it says that's the message. So we could actually use the letter D, and as long as the letter D is not in our message, that's fine. But if it is, it's going to cut off the message at wherever it finds the next D and not include the second D. Does that make sense to y'all? So I would say use a number sign normally, but just for your information, the delimiter really is not got any rules on what the delimiter has to be. Whereas in Windows World, when you have delimiters and stuff on it, you're stuck with specific delimiters, because y'all know where you got to use single quotes for some stuff, double quotes for other stuff, and certain things. You can use those here, but it's Unix, and then Linux in turn from it, which is a derivative from it, is pretty free form and lets you do just about anything. Because if you've done any studying on those, if you're root in those, you have full authority. You can commit suicide, essentially. You can have your machine commit suicide, because if you're logged on as root, you can actually tell it to delete everything on that machine. And it will delete everything, and then there's nothing there for it to run from. Windows will never let you do that. You can be as administrator, and administrator is your most powerful person in Windows, but it won't let you wipe out the system files. Y'all follow on that? So you can't kill the operating system while running it. In Unix and Linux, you can, if you're root. So you're the god of the system, and that's what you'll see most people refer to it as. You've got full authority. So the system can commit suicide. So I'm going to say keep out, and then put a closing parameter note there. Hit enter, and now I've got a message of the day that would pop up there on the bottom of all of that information when you first hit the machine, where it had all that copyright information and everything, and then finished with press enter to begin, or press return to begin. I think it's actually the word on it. Remember, return, enter is the same key. On terminals, it was a return key. On your PCs, it's an enter key, but that's the same key. Okay, they just changed the name on it. Because back on typewriters, it was a return key, because you return to the start of the next line. Here, you're entering the information, so they've changed it, but it's exactly the same key and location. All right, so now you've put a message of the day in.
Right.
Is there a way to put down a command that locks down the computer and it requires something specific?
I guess, but that's not what we're doing
I
here.
don't know, I'm just asking.
All right. So that gets us through a good bit of stuff. You can also, if you're running it through a terminal emulation, you can in turn direct you can take what you got here when you do your show run, that you can in turn paste it out and get it out of there to put it into a text document. And that they show you a little on that, but that's not a big concern for you in here. They're showing you using putty in the book. And if we were working on the real equipment, that's what we would do in here. But you're going to use this. But notice it looks, that where I've told you, it really does look just like if you were on the real equipment. And that's why I want to bring that cable over and let us hook up on there. Is putty on y'all's machine? I think it is or not. Is it there?
I see it on the desktop.
It's on the desktop? Okay. So as long as putty is there, then we can do it, that we can hook up one of the switches or routers. And then y'all can see the real one to see that it really is the same thing you're doing in here. There are a few advanced commands will not work in here that works on the real machines, that they haven't gotten it developed to that point yet. They're continuously improving it. 7.2 just came out this summer. Okay? Version 1 of the packet tracer was horrible. It didn't have any graphics to it or anything else, and it didn't hardly do anything. Because they came out with the original version back when I was taking my Cisco classes back in 2001. It has come a long way since. It's a really good product now and can do, those of you that have already done that packet tracer course, I told you got to do, it counts as a lab. And you don't have to tell me that you did anything, because I'll just go in there and it shows me your grade and shows me you completed it, and you'll get a certificate that you can print out, shows that you completed that. Okay? Counts on that. All right.
So we have to print out the certificate?
Hmm?
We have to print out the certificate?
You don't have to give me anything. I'll just go in and look in that course and then transfer the grade across to the other two locations. The certificate's for you. So you got something you can put in scrapbook, put on your wall. I'd encourage you, and I'm going to put something else out on this soon, to develop a virtual portfolio and start keeping those certificates and things. You could put them out there in LinkedIn, create a folder in LinkedIn and start putting all the different things you get, of certificates you get from the different things. When you get some certifications, put those out there and have them all in a location. You can put it in a folder on your OneDrive, and y'all have a OneDrive folder, a OneDrive account sitting there that came with your Office 365 that you can get from school. You can keep it in there, and you can share that then out with employers and stuff when you apply for a job, either from LinkedIn or do it from OneDrive or whatever, or some other place if you like Dropbox or whatever. Because Dropbox is a good product. I use Dropbox every week, because that's where my church uses, and we use a free account for me to be able to build their PowerPoints at home. Then I'll load them in Dropbox, and me or whoever's running the system on Sunday morning just goes in Dropbox, because we got a internet connection up there in our balcony at our computer place there, and just pull the file over from Dropbox at that point. So it makes a real neat sharing way on it. I'll do the same thing in OneDrive. I've done it in my server class, which I don't think pertains to any of y'all. Also, I'm going to have to do it in my SQL class, which I don't think none of y'all are taking SQL from me, are you? Problem is, when you're teaching these online ones, you don't know, you see names, but you don't always have faces or anything else attached with them. I'm going to have to put their copy of SQL Server out there in OneDrive also, because they don't have it in Imagine anymore, their version. And so I'll put the file out there in OneDrive, share it, give them all the link to it at that point, and I won't private share it either, for that matter. If somebody goes to go hunting and digs through on the internet to find that I've got it shared there, well, they'll just be able to get it. But they won't have the key to use it, so it won't do them any good anyway, because they can get the same thing from the Microsoft website. And without a key, it doesn't do you any good. So I'll put it there and then give them all a link to it, and they can download it straight off there, just like they were downloading it from Imagine. And it's actually the Imagine copy, it's just Imagine doesn't have it on storefront. So you got all of those. They then go through and have you set up the IP addressing. Don't worry about what those numbers are in this chapter. When we get to chapter 6, 7, or 8, one of those chapters, I don't remember which one it is. It varies depending on the version of the book, but it's always in the middle of the book. That we'll go through IP addressing, and you'll see what all of those numbers specifically mean at that point, and you will know that after that. That will be a couple of the harder chapters for you in the book. Okay?
So, you said that when they do this packet, we completed all the steps that are required. Is it just send it to you, or do we have to put it in the Dropbox?
You got to put it in the Dropbox, because the only place I grade stuff is from the Dropbox.
Alright, so you
Okay.
just save it and open it up and look it up.
So you're going to save it on your machine, and then you're just going to attach it in the Dropbox. It just attaches like you attached any. If you were going to email it to me, you attach it in Dropbox the same way. There's a browse button there for you to click and attach it with.
All you have to do is just open it up.
And so you just got to go find it and choose it, and it's attached at that point. You're not opening it at that point, you're just attaching it. It stayed closed the whole point along the way there. Make sure you do say. Now, the other part is make sure you do save the stuff in here on the way. Now, because of the way this is working, if you do your save, make sure you do your save in Packet Tracer besides doing your save on your devices. As long as you do the save on Packet Tracer, the stuff will still be there for you, because you've really not turned off the devices, because Packet Tracer sees them as still on when you come back to them. On the real devices, if you turned off the device, everything you didn't save is gone. Likewise, if you actually turned off the device here in Packet Tracer, everything disappears there too. But if you just left the device open right there, and you did your save up in Packet Tracer and closed Packet Tracer, when you start Packet Tracer and open that file again, everything will be just like it was. But do your saves regularly. That's the next thing I need to tell you about. I knew there was a couple other things I need to tell you here. So let me come back to Packet Tracer, because I want to show you several other things you need to know about. Let's look first at the assignment sheet, because there's some information on here that is highly useful to you. Across here at the bottom. I need to enlarge it so you can see all of it, because it's with that size on it, it hid some stuff. And now, if I go to there, stuff disappears off the bottom of the screen on you. So let me get a little bit here, and I'm going to put it back up. Well, didn't quite get it where I wanted. Oh, because I've got this thing in the larger print. Let's get rid of that setting on it. I'm going to go back to 100%, which is smaller than what we really wanted, but now we can actually read stuff across the bottom. There's a couple of buttons across here and an informational piece here that's highly useful to you. Okay? Oddly enough, I did exactly what they wanted done in this assignment. When you start, it's going to have completion over here on your activities. And it's going to tell you what your score is. Some of the time it's going to be like they've got it here. It's going to give you a number / a number. Some of the time it's going to be a percent. Most of the time it will be a percent. The percent ones you want to get it to 100%. That's where I'm going to grade from. So everybody follow on that? Now it doesn't look at your name on desktop, so if you didn't put your name on desktop, I'm going to subtract 30 points off whatever's there. But I'm gonna look and see what you did wrong too. I'm gonna show you how you know that. Or it will do it as this number. You wanna get it, if it's like on this one, you wanna get it like I did on this one to 20 out of 20. Okay? That's 100 at that point. So everybody follow on that? If I only had 10 out of 20 and turned it in, I'd get a 50 on the assignment. Y'all see? So watch that. It's telling you what your score is. Your object is to get to 100. Everything you turn into me should be 100. Because you get to sit there and do it as much as you need till you get it right. Okay? So you should get 100 on all of these labs. Other one is, there's a check results button here. That will tell you what has either not been done or not done correctly, that they are grading. You may have some other stuff that's not done correctly, but now when you click it, it actually blocks you from seeing the other stuff at that point. So your other screens disappear on you. Apparently I've got a couple of copies of Packet Tracer running at the moment. Yeah, because no, that's not a couple of copies. That's where it actually still leaves you where when you went into a device that's still there. But as far as the desktop and the directions, they disappear on you. And it's got 3 tabs on it. The second tab's the one you're really concerned about. This first one, if we hadn't done everything, it will tell you the stuff's covered in whatever section in the book. Okay? But it doesn't really help a whole lot on it. But this one, I got all 20 points out of 20 points, remember? So it tells me, congratulations, you successfully completed it. Okay? I really didn't remember that was there, that they changed that. Then on this screen, if we go to the second one, assessment items, this is the one you want to use and check results. It shows you everything it's grading you on. Okay? It shows you how your score is also. And it's telling you over here some basic information on it. But here's the things you're watching for. You want everything to be green checks. If you hadn't done something, it's kind of a red X there. Now, it's not going to tell you every little thing about what you did wrong. It's just telling you this item is either done not correctly or you haven't done it. Does that make sense? So it's not telling you that you haven't done it, but it's telling you either you haven't done it or you didn't do it right. So now you know where you're missing your points. Okay? And so these are columns just like in the spreadsheet that you can widen them out to see more stuff. So you can go up through the top of them because it's really a spreadsheet right there. On the screen up there it's a little hard to see, but I can then stretch the column out to see the entire thing. You've got your scroll bar across here, and that you can get over into this other stuff to see on it. But there it's going to tell you on it. Basically on this assignment, the only thing I had to do was put the console cable in correctly. Okay? Which we did. Because it said, do I have that console cable plugged into the RS-232 port and that I have it connecting to the console on the PC, that I have it connecting correctly on the PC to the RS-232 on the switch, I have it connecting correctly to the console, and that it gave me points on that. Okay? You could have a whole long list that goes down to here of items you got to do on later assignments. These first assignments, it's just a short little list. But as you go along, it's going to get to be more things you got to do. So you can look down through that list. They are expansion ones, so it could have it narrowed down and have plus signs beside things, and click on the plus sign and it'll enlarge it and tell you the more details. That will tell you the area where you've missed something in. But it may not be precise enough where you know where to go look, and you can go back through your directions and look again and see, did I mistype it, and look at your show run and stuff, and did I not type something in correctly or whatever. It's going to look for precision on passwords, for instance. when it tells you to use class as a password, that it wants you to set up a password and use class, you have to use class, or whatever it tells you to use. It's going to tell you did it wrong if you put some other password. Does that make sense? So be careful on that.
Desktop name on the packet tracer itself, or just the Word document where we were answering the questions?
Wait a minute, what?
Do you need our name on the packet tracer itself too, or just the
You've got
Word
to put
document?
your name on that desktop in packet tracer, like I showed you.
You said that you're not going to count that on chapter 1, right?
Now, what you need to do, since you already turned them in, go back and get them again and put it in and resubmit them.
Okay.
Okay? Although most likely I wouldn't hold that against you, but go and then double
Just in
check your
case.
scores and stuff on it too, okay? But you got through Monday night to get them back into me, and that then
Well, I was talking about
you'll make,
last week's.
huh?
I was talking about
But
last
you'll
week.
make it easier on me this week, when I grade this week, where I won't be typing a message to you telling you you didn't put your password in, and that is a requirement, and you will be penalized in the future substantially. And I gotta remember how to spell substantially. Okay? So make it easier on me.
Can you show me the save point on packet tracer?
Hmm?
Can you show me the save point on that?
The date,
Save point.
the save, okay, that was where you did the copy. Either on the devices, it's the copy run start, or to save the actual packet tracer files going up to the top of the packet tracer screen where it's got the options across there, just like on anything else you do in Windows.
So it's
And
save.
says file, and you go down to save.
Okay.
Okay? Now, everybody follow on this part right here? So that is a real use that check results. Okay? If you want to wipe out everything and start all over again on the assignment, that second button will work for that. Okay? So if I did reset activity, because actually that will work nicely for us right here. And then I do check results again, but notice over there on my score, I now got 0 out of 20. And if we go to check results, so you'll see what the difference looks like. So I don't think you ever want to use reset activity, okay? I just had a reason to use it right there. So now if I come, notice it no longer tells me, it says, if you're having a problem, this is what you ought to go look at. And then if I look at assessment items, notice they all got red X's in front of them now. So I haven't done any of that stuff now. Okay? Y'all follow on that? And see how it looks different? So that worked real nicely for that part. Now, I want to go back to the packet tracer screen, because there's a button on there, and this chapter is not going to make a big difference for you. But it's going to be exceedingly useful later on in the book. Here, down at the bottom. Don't worry about the time on it. That's just how much time have you spent working on it right now. So we've been on this thing for 1 hour and 3 minutes. Okay? Or
Minutes. Because you reset it.
looks like it says 1 minute and 13 seconds. I'm not sure what. Oh, because I just reset it. So a minute ago, I just reset the whole activity, so it resets the clock back on. Okay? Don't worry about what time it builds up there. I'm not looking at that, other than I may glance at that if you had asked questions and gone, you didn't understand stuff, or you sent it to me and said you just can't get anything to work. I may glance at that and notice you've only spent 3 minutes on this activity here. You sure didn't try very hard. Okay? Second one is power cycle devices. In this course, you're not going to use that one, but what that does is that turns the power off on all of the devices and turns it back on. You've just done a restart on every device. Does that make sense? It's what power cycle devices doesn't put them on. The third one is the one that you will find helpful through the course. Fast forward time. In networks, devices all talk to devices. And we want to get things to normally have, you saw the black lights, little black buttons on that wire up here earlier. Well, when we set up the other cables, they'll actually, instead of being black, they'll be red, orange, or green. You want to get them to green. that's when they know what's on the other end of the line. Okay, and that the line is working correctly. Red says you plugged it in there, but nothing's happening on it. Orange says it's sort of working, but not really working. It's sort of like with our cell phone, that cell phone's working, but you can't make any phone calls at that point. Or you call somebody and you can't understand them. And green is when it works perfectly fine for us. I can pick up my cell phone and call whichever one of you, and we have a fine conversation. Fast forward time says, because it takes time to get those things all working. Some protocols we're going to learn in the book send out messages to check on stuff every 30 seconds. Some things send out every 90 seconds. Some things send out every time something happens, immediately. Well, it's when all of those things talk back and forth, and when they recognize everything else, the other stuff is there, that the green lights come on for you, okay? On a real network, just like on here, this works just like the real network, it will take time sometimes for devices to be recognized by other devices. Because remember, I just told you some things only get sent out every 90 seconds. So it might be 90 seconds before this machine sends out to that one, and then it has to wait over 90 seconds for a response back to realize that machine's not there anymore. Or that it took 90 seconds, up to 90 seconds, because it happened somewhere in the time frame, before that other machine says, oh, that machine is there, and then the green lights come on. On the real network, till your little network indicators flashing correctly, and you're able to go out and get to Google or wherever and get things working. And y'all know where sometimes it's a delay there when you start the machine up till it's working right. Y'all follow on that? This is working exactly the same way. Fast forward time, you click that button, you jump 30 seconds into the future. Right then. Which means that you can then, if it's something that's going to take 2 minutes to do, you can sit there and watch it for 2 minutes. Or we can click that button 4 times and we're 2 minutes in the future right then. Y'all follow on that? Real equipment has no fast forward button, fast forward time button. And I've had numerous people tell me they wish real equipment had that fast forward time button, because they really like that in Packet Tracer and wished when they're working on real equipment they had that there, because it would make life so much easier. But you've got that advantage of doing it in Packet Tracer. So be aware of that button there. It will save you time later on. Okay? So that's a highly useful one. There's some things, there's a number of things on here you may never use on it, but there's a number of things that are useful for you. Y'all may find some other things that you like that can be useful to you too as you go along, okay? Remember putting your name on the desktop here with a requirement on that using the little insert note. And it's the one that looks like a piece of paper on this version or the newer version, okay? And y'all should be using 7.2 because that's the version that's sitting out there at Netacad for you now, okay? Now, the only problem with that will be y'all can't bring it in on a thumb drive or whatever, which you can put it on there. You can't come in here and work on it in here, because if you guys load that when you started at home and then brought it here, it will come up to give you a message that it was created on a newer version of Packet Tracer than this and won't open it for you. So Packet Tracer is not backward compatible, but it's not forward compatible, it is backward compatible. The newer, if you started it here and then took it home, it would open it up fine. If you started it on 6 and then went and opened it up on 7, it would work fine. But once it's saved in 7, it's not going to work back in 6. Does that make sense? Versus like in Word, it's forward and backward compatible. Okay? Although it will tell you at times, if you open up something from newer, it will tell you there's some features not available to you, because I see that in PowerPoint. Each week, sometimes somebody gives me something, a PowerPoint to put in there, and they create an older version than what I'm running it on. And it'll give me a warning that there may be some features used in it that won't be available in my copy. Okay? And we've got high school students wandering the building at this point too.
Saw that.
Because there's a tier group here today. All right, any questions on all of that? Because we have used up the whole amount of time, and I'm to the same point when I did all of this yesterday. Now, I didn't do the last half of the chapter, because we don't have time to, but you know how to do this stuff now, so you should be able to go in and do it from there, okay?
So when we upload the packet tracer in the Word document for the assignment, we can upload them separately?
Put them both, you're going to do them both in the, I can't go in Blackboard. When you go into the Dropbox and you go to, and it's got down there at the bottom when you go in, because when you go to chapter 2 and you click on chapter 2 and then it opens up and it gives you your assignment directions, in the bottom part of the page as for you to submit your assignment.
Yeah.
There's a browse, I think it's browse is what the button says. Does that sound right? If you click that, then you'll choose one of the attachments, attach it, and then you can tell it, it'll have a line underneath of it that says you can add another attachment. Click on that, it'll give you another browse button, you can add another. Actually, no, it doesn't give you that. When you attach that one, it will show you the name of it right underneath that little line right there that the browse button was on. It shows you the one you've attached and actually has a spot beside it that says you can remove it if you want to remove, if you didn't mean to attach that one. But you just click the browse again and you can go get another one, and it'll have the 2 items listed there, or 3 or 4. It'll let you all on that one submission put the multiple things in. Now, the only times you have to do the Word document is if there were questions you had to answer when you were going through those directions, that if there were any questions it asked you in there, normally has a spot with a line drawn out by it, although it may have a reflection area at the end with no lines drawn out for you to put where they were thinking you'd write it in the document. Do it in just a Word document and label it and just say it's part 1, step 3, and then whatever your answer was. Does that make sense? All right, any other questions? And I should get y'all marked in attendance out on there when I get back
Do that commission.
later today.
There's an easier way to do it. You can just hold shift and click files, multiple, and just do them all at once.
Okay. Will it let you do?
Yeah. You
On
can,
one?
Like like how you do in like Word or something when you're doing stuff.
It will let you do it in there?
Yeah.
Because it won't let you do in some other places.
Yeah. It
'Cause
depends
I've
on the
hit-
file.
That's where I can't remember.
It depends on the file.
So my easier way to tell you is
Just to, do it in a way that
That-
it'll always work.
it definitely, you can do them one at a time. You can do multiple, because there's some
Well, that's
other
what,
places y'all can only attach, that you can only attach one file and it won't let you attach any more than one file. I know when I return stuff to I think it will only let me attach one file to y'all. No, it's in discussion board will only let you attach one item
Yeah.
instead of multiple items. But the Dropbox will let you,
Correctly?
yeah.
Well, the only thing is, I believe it only works with the Word documents in it. I think if you try to do the PTA, because they're so big, you have to do them one at a time, because they're bigger than a Word doc, I think.
But it will let you do, you can do the packet tracer file and the Word document in there.
Yeah, I know, but I was just saying, I think you can do it with Word docs, you can do as many as you want. You can just shift and click, and then do them.
You should be able to do the different types, but
I
the
think-
thing is, you may not have them in the same folder, and if you guys switch around folders, it's a whole lot easier to just do them.
Yeah, I think if
one
you
at a
start
time.
switching
If
folders,
they
I think
were-
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work well on doing that. Theoretically, you can,
Yeah.
but that's theoretically.
Yeah.
And theoretically
And
doesn't
I have your
always.
online class. Are
Huh?
you just going to use that for the online as well? Or do I need to send you an email about that?
On what?
The permission form, I have your
No, because this one will count for that, but send me an email and tell me that you gave it to me in here, so then I'll make sure I check it over
Alright.
there in the 2601.
Yeah, that problem I was finding though is because
I did the enable password, but I didn't do enable secret password. I didn't remember the fact that it overrides it kind of. So I was like, oh.
Okay,
I realized that once I started.
no problem.
I was like, man.
Because it's learning how to do this stuff.